So I'm going to draw a nose today, and I want to talk a little bit about the structure first. You can really break it down into basic shapes. There's going to be like a piece that sticks out a little more than the rest in front, and then you have this, which is kind of like a cone, kind of like a pyramid, but neither one, because we don't want sharp edges. Like there's not typically a sharp edge here, but there is flat-ish surfaces, and then you have your brow bone that sticks up and a surface under here. So all these different planes make up the nose. And then we can see how changes fade, but the only real sharp lines in a nose are this bottom edge right here typically, where you have an edge to the bottom and a cast shadow, and then where the side of your nostril hits your cheek. So noses are a little tougher because even though there's these structures, we're not going to be drawing edges like we did with the eye. So I have a Selena Gomez photo here to help out. I'm going to look at where things line up to start. Always start with your dashes and things in the beginning so that you can kind of get things lined up. This is a little close over here because it's not a big deal to move a dash or a line. It's a lot more annoying to move a whole shaded area. So let's see, these are about maybe here, maybe here. So I'm just sort of putting in where the top comes in. Let's see how wide that is. Not wide, way less than I have it. So let's go more like this. See, not a big deal. Let's see, is that right? Yes, that's closer. Okay, and then this right about here, this distance. Oh, I did pretty good. Let's go with this one. All right, so I have my dashes in, so I know where things are gonna go. I'll darken them a little bit so you can see them a little better. And now I'm gonna start to, I like to start either the top or the bottom because there's more there to define it. If I'm gonna start up here, I wanna use the side of my pencil because this is not a line, it's a value. So either 4 fingers on top, 1 thumb on the bottom, or I can hold it at the other end of my pencil. That forces me to use the side of my pencil and to draw a shade or a value as opposed to a line. I don't want a line because there's no line there. There's no lines around our noses in life because we're not comics or cartoons, we're people. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to shade this side here and start to get that value in there. Curve this edge a little bit. It's fine. And then I'm going to add a little value up top, curve this. So you see there is a bone right there, that brow bone. I want to indicate so I see the structure of the face, and a lot of times there's a little more shadow right up top here as that sticks out a little bit. Here, the way she's lit, I don't see that as much, but again, it's not a line, so I'm coming in. And I do want to add some shadow under the eye because that's going to help define the eye socket, but I'm not going to do a super dark shadow in there. I tend to do it a little less actually, because what happens if you make it dark is you look like you're older and tired. So I just want to get a slight indication that there's a shadow in here, and then I start to bring that down. Now, as I see where that is, I'm going to let that go. I'll come back to it. And now I'm going to define the bottom edge of the nose, because that is closer to, let's see, make sure that's in the camera. That is closer to a line. There's sort of an edge right here. So I sometimes trace this before I start it so I can see just how that goes. So it comes up, down, and up. There's some little curves. That's not it. So I'm gonna go from the outside edge up, down, up. Now, we don't see, typically, because I'm drawing a person looking straight ahead, we don't see a hole. We see an edge and then a cast shadow. So there's a darkness there, but it's not, oh, that's way too shallow. Let's see, I'm gonna draw a line here just so I can, because this is my practice to see, oh, look at that, look at the difference. Sometimes it kind of fools the eye. I just did a different one that was much more shallow than this, so that wasn't it. So I have this, see, it's okay, it was just a line. I can erase a line, that's no big deal. And then I have a cast shadow here. There's a little more underneath here. This looks like it's a little bit more narrow there. And this comes here. And then I have these. And then, I'm gonna get rid of that. On the outside edges of the nostril, there is an edge again where the outside edge of the nostril hits your cheek, and then this fold of skin or cartilage, whatever that is, comes around underneath there like this. So I get this curve here, and hers is actually out a little bit more underneath, and then that comes in here. That shadow is connecting to it, and there's often a little bit of a shadow in here because she's lit mostly from the front and a little to the left. It's almost a highlight there, but do you see how this is lighter than that? So I'm going to have some darker value in here. So I'm again shading with holding my pencil all the way out by the eraser, and there is getting this little divot here will help it get the idea of depth into your drawing. There's often a highlight. She's got some fancy lip gloss on, so yes, there's definitely a highlight there. There's still typically a lighter part of the skin, and then a shadow just above it into that divot. So I'm emphasizing that a little bit more. Now the tough part is we have to get this darker value here, and then there's still a bottom edge to her nose. So there's still a shadow here, but it's not as dark as underneath. It's not as drastic. So this comes around, get rid of that little guy, and then this is lightening up. It's still darker here. This is darker here. I find it easier to shade with my hand on by the eraser, but sometimes I like to try both. Give them both a try. See what you like. This is darker out here. So I'm pressing harder, but I'm also building value as I'm coming along. And then this goes here, and this goes here, and then this comes in a little bit more. I'm not going to draw the eyes because I'm mostly focusing on the nose, but notice how the eyebrow sits right on the brow bone. That'll help you get the placement of things coming in. So keys to think about. No lines in the center of the nose. It's all changes in value and shading. So here where it's light, I'm going to try and keep my shading light and moving around. And this is something where the blending stick or the tortillon does help. And I often start with kind of get these darker values in. Oftentimes there's going to be shadows on both sides of the nose because the light's more diffuse. It's not as strong as this on the one side. It's a little dark on her nose, but I'm going to come back and draw with an eraser too. And then I come around here like this. On one hand, it can make noses a little harder because there aren't lines, but they're also more forgiving that way. So there's a piece that always sticks out a little more than the rest. It's almost like a circle. So you can draw in these little circles here, here, and here to help you figure that out. I tend not to because I find that I tend to, it's hard to get past that outline then. I don't really want lines on it. I just know in my brain that they're there. So I have a shadow here, highlight's going to come back in there. See how the roundness of her nose comes up here, so I want to show that contour with my value change. So that's going to be a little darker. That comes in here. This is a little darker where it hits her cheek. And there's an edge, but it's not a strong edge. And then there's a highlight there. There's a little shadow up and around her eye socket. And then this is a nice light value here. So I'll bring this in here. This comes around. So I'm not going to get it perfect right away. I'm going to keep honing it, but I'm not going to keep going on the video because, you know, like I get the idea. So we have this. This is a lighter value here. Sometimes having your shading follow the contour does help it stay in that direction. So I can leave it like this. I kind of personally, I like the texture of the pencil on the page. I think it adds an interesting effect. If you are not like that and you'd prefer something much smoother, you can come back in with, this has got to come up here, like I missed this darkness, with the tortillon, the blending stick. I do not recommend shading with your finger. You just get, it just makes blobs. It doesn't work. So I can get this, fade this out, and don't go like this. It just squishes it. You want to get, I try to keep my finger off the page too because I'm just going to smear my values, my side of my hand, I mean. It gives it a nice smooth look. I think these cost like 7 cents at art stores. Get yourself a dozen if you want to get some. They're fun to play with. So I come in, I do this, I get this shadow in here, emphasize this shadow here, bring this down, and look at, I can blend into the white spot with the value that's already there. I don't have to add more. And then I'm going to come back in, because this does make a lot of gray. I'm going to come back in with my eraser as my finishing touches and give it some highlights. The gummy gray erasers, the kneaded eraser works nice for that too. I like the top of the pencil to kind of soften it. And just to take some value out, soften the edge, get that highlight in there. Come on. Lift the pencil. So you keep going a little bit, soften a little more, but hopefully you get the idea. Thank you.